The grand jury comes together to decide what they want to do with the Donald. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on there and what that could mean coming forward for Trump and the Trump organization. In other news, Marjorie Taylor Greene is back in the news because I'm pretty sure she's a plant at this point, and she's supposed to be in the news, but she made some interesting comparisons to the vaccinations and Nazis, and then people went back and dug up old video of her. Isn't that wonderful? So we'll talk just a bit about that. Anthony Blinken offers $110 million to the Palestinian rebuild effort. So we'll talk just a bit about that. And Moderna is saying that the Comicoof vaccine can work for kids as young as 12. It's going to be all this and more. Plus, something I'm thankful for at the end of the show here on Contemporary. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. I guess you guys got a spoiler here, but I had a funny video to start out this show today here. But we've got to get into it. We've got a bunch of news to get to today. It's not going to be as packed as I thought it was going to be. We're actually going to change the format just a touch here because once we talk about the gas earlier on in the show, there's actually a couple articles talking about what could be happening for Memorial Day and what that could mean. And they're highly contradictive of each other, too. So I will give you what's in those articles. You decide what you think is going to happen on Memorial Day as far as gas prices. So we'll talk about that in the comments here. But before we get started, before we watch this horrifying video, head on over to freedomscoop.com. We are still under construction, but you can still bookmark that page. And while you're over there bookmarking, you can go back and check out great creators. We have such great creators as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles and Brit Show. Head on over there, check out all those shows. Once we get back up and running, we will have the means to come out and directly support our great creators. So you can head on over there. You can either directly support or pick up the merch and help us support great creators. All right, let's watch this first because most of you guys who watch this show know that I have a background in industrial, which means that I've been around equipment, I've been around repair, and I've seen some of this stuff happen. But I've got this video here. Now, when you change a heavy truck tire, you don't put it on the machine like you do on your car tire. You do it all manually. I bet you they have machines. I've just never seen one because I've never worked in a shop that's rich enough to afford one. So you do it all manually, but you put the rim on the ground. You don't put the tire on the ground. And you do it because, well, this. There's no audio to this video. But yeah. And there he went. Right up his ass. Kaboom. Let's watch that again. Kaboom! Yeah, you always put the rim on the ground. Always. To avoid that. That's like one of the first things you learn. Alright, let's get into some news here for the day. Looking in at the Dow. On our finance today, the Dow is down as of yesterday, 81.52. That is 0.24%. It's down to 34,312.46. 37,000 at the end of the summer. It's possible. It's still a struggle. I know we talked a bit about that yesterday, so we'll follow what's happening there and what could have possibly brought this back down. Let's look at Bitcoin for the day. Bitcoin just popped back up a little bit ago before we got started here because it was at 39,876 when I first pulled up the Google, but now it is up to 40,276.50 is your Bitcoin. So it's struggling, it's clawing its way back. Definitely something to watch, and possibly I hope that some of you guys got your Bitcoin while it was on sale because the price is going to go back up. It looks like. This is not official financial advice. Always check to see what is advisable by your advisor. But it's something to definitely look at. And it possibly could, I don't know, maybe see what we used to see again. We will continue to watch it and see what happens. All right, we're going to wait on the gas buddy for just a second, and we're going to start with IBD instead and look into what it is they have to say. And then, because I've got these two articles on the gas prices, we'll do that afterwards. So, from IBD, Dow Jones futures rise, Bitcoin fights for 40,000 after market rally holds key levels, Tesla goes off the radar. From Ed Carson, Dow Jones futures rose slightly Wednesday along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. Bitcoin reclaimed the $40,000 level as cryptocurrencies rebounded overnight. The stock market rally paused on Tuesday with the major indices edging lower following a nice bounce over the past few sessions. Chip gear makers such as AMAT stock led, while travel stocks have some baggage, and Tesla embarked on its vision-only quest for driving. TurboTax maker Intuit, cybersecurity stock Zscaler, and luxury home builder Toll Bros headlined earnings after the close. Dick's Sporting Goods reported early Wednesday. And it's too bad they don't sell guns anymore, otherwise I would say that that's probably attributing to them. But even still, they're probably looking back and they're probably thinking, okay, well, people can think they can go out and play volleyball again, and meanwhile the rest of us never fucking stopped. Zscaler jumped 11% in pre-market trade on a beat and raise report. EPS jumped 114% with revenue growth accelerating for a fifth straight quarter up to 60%, signaling a gap above its 50-day line, possibly breaking a downward sloping trend line. But ZS stock would still be well off record highs and below short-term resistance near 200. Intuit stock, already in a buy zone, rose slightly overnight on solid earnings and guidance. Intuit stock could move out of the 5% chase zone. Toll stock edged higher on earnings after shares bounced on Tuesday. Keep in mind, if you're looking at Intuit, that tax season is over. So the majority of the people who are just going to sit at their desk and say, I can do my taxes, I don't need to pay somebody else to do this here, they're already done buying for the year. And you're going to see some people pick it up while it's on sale because now now the companies need to move the stock that they had of the software. But other than that, I think your tax season's done. Dick's Sporting Goods crushed EPS views and top sales targets. DKS stock popped before the open, signaling a bounce from the 10-week line. Did it bounce like a basketball? Anything like that? No? No, too far. Airline, cruise line, and other travel-related stocks were early leaders, with JetBlue, Carnival, and Boeing clearing early entries, while MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment broke out. But several of these stocks came well off morning highs, or even closed lower. Long term, their earnings outlooks raised some concerns. Meanwhile, chip gear stocks continued to do well. Lam Research and Applied Materials rose again. Both LRCX stock and Applied Materials are still in range after rebounding from their 10-week lines and breaking trend lines on Monday. Dick's stock and Applied Materials are on the IBD leaderboard. JetBlue, AMAT, and Caesar are on Swing Trader. A day after reports that Tesla was testing LiDAR models on some vehicles, the EV giant said Tuesday it's dropping radar from Model 3 and Model Y vehicles for the North American market, starting with May deliveries. Some autopilot features or other driver assist systems, such as Summon, may be limited temporarily. Radar will still be included on the revamped Model S and X, at least in the short run. Tesla CEO Elon Musk had hinted at vision-only shift in recent weeks. Most automakers and tech companies are working on self-driving, rely on a variety of sensors. Tesla stock edged down 0.3% to 604.69 on Tuesday, holding above its 200-day line. Tesla stock popped 4.4% on Monday. The relative strength line for Tesla is just above a 6-month low. Ah ha ha, they're going on a vision quest because it's radar. Ha 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 ha, that's not funny. The Bitcoin rose 9%. Versus 24 hours earlier to slightly above 40,000. That's after tumbling to nearly 30,000 last week amid various Elon Musk tweets and China cryptocurrency crackdowns. Other digital assets, including Ethereum and Doge, showed bigger gains on Wednesday. Bitcoin hit a record of 64,829.14 in mid-April. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.2% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures advanced 0.35%, and NASDAQ 100 futures climbed 0.5%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, that's what we have going on with the stocks. Let's check in with the street and see if we can get a little bit more rounded out idea of what's going on with this. Dow futures higher as Fed tames bond markets. Ford, ExxonMobil in focus. With benchmark 10-year bond yields well under 1.6% and a $60 billion two-year auction in the rearview mirror, inflation hawks will likely remain on hold until Friday's April go away advertisement. April PCE index release proving a smooth path for U.S. stocks. Global stocks grind higher as central bank officials continue to placate inflation concerns while bond markets remain steady ahead of Friday's PCE index release. Fed Vice Chairman Richard Clarida repeats view that bond purchase tapering remains a long way off, adding the central bank can engineer a soft landing if inflation were to derail the U.S. economy. Boy, that just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Benchmark 10-year note yields eased to 1.577% in overnight trading, while the dollar index added 0.1% to trade at 89,731. CDC data shows 131.1 million Americans have now been fully vaccinated against the commie fucking coof, with around 287.8 million doses administered as of Tuesday. U.S. equity futures suggest a firmer open on Wall Street ahead of Ford Motors Capital Markets Day and the results of a boardroom election battle at ExxonMobil. So they're trying to engineer the inflation right now. So they're printing money left and right. They're raising the prices on everything, and they're trying to tell you that inflation isn't going to happen. In fact, I would almost guess that this number here is manipulated somehow, because with all the money that just got printed, both last year and this year so far, there's no way this can be accurate. Even with the GDP starting to come back up and people starting to go back to work, with nobody out working, with them still throwing around money like it's going out of style, I can't see how that's even possible. But we will continue to watch this and see what happens with the inflation and what happens with the economy as well. So, let's continue on. Let's look at Gas Buddy. Top 10 gas stations and cheap fuel prices in Madison, Wisconsin. The Costco is still leading at $2.65 a gallon. Mobile in Madison on Sherman Avenue is $2.69. The Quick Trip in Waunakee is at $2.82. Otherwise, we're seeing a smattering of $2.68, $2.69, up into the low 270s. So that's what we're seeing up in Madison. But could this continue through the weekend? Let's check. Starting with ABC News. Memorial Day gas prices expected to be highest since 2014, according to AAA, from Amanda Mail. Taking the road over Memorial Day weekend, experts say gas prices will be around $3 a gallon, the highest since the 2014 holiday weekend, according to AAA. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the average price of gas across the U.S. for the week of May 17th was $3.11 a gallon. The week before that, the prices averaged out at $3.05 per gallon. Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, said the effects of the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack and increased demand are to blame. Prices have been going up really since last November, and that's just a story that the vaccine continues to allow. DeHaan said Americans are now getting back to normal. You couldn't drive to see an MLB game, but now you can. You couldn't drive to see an NHL game, but now you can. There's a lot more things for Americans to do now that the economy is reopening. Travelers are expected to turn out in big numbers over the holiday weekend. AAA predicted that 37 million Americans will travel by air and road from Thursday to Sunday. I'd say what we're seeing now is just the market stabilizing in terms of seeing pumps being refueled, but also remaining high because we know demand is going to be pretty significant. Jeanette McGee, director of AAA's external communications, told ABC News. Despite a modest recovery in the weeks following the pipeline incident, southern states are still expecting outages, with 29% of South Carolina gas stations, 27% of Georgia gas stations, and 25% of North Carolina gas stations out of fuel, according to GasBuddy.com. For motorists around most of the country, there's not a whole lot to worry about unless you're in the southeast, where you still may have a bit of headache when choosing to fill up, DeHaan said. For those traveling this weekend, McGee recommended filling up once you hit a quarter tank. keep your eye on your fuel tank. When you hit that quarter of a tank left, make sure that at that point a little light goes off in your head and you consider filling up. McGee said, you don't want to get too far down the road and run out of gas. It's just not good for your car and it's not good for your wallet. So, given the fact, and they're predicting this off of the American Southeast at this point because a lot of them are still out of gas at this point. They've got plenty of diesel, and a lot of the vehicles that are going to be running around this weekend are diesel too because they'll be hauling that big old camper everywhere they can, and that gas truck just doesn't haul it as well as that big old diesel does. But regardless, it looks like ABC News is predicting higher than normal gas prices. We'll continue to watch Gas Buddy throughout the week and see where it goes. But yeah, as of right now, it looks like everything is actually normal and possibly coming down a little bit. So we'll see what's happening there. On the other hand, from WMTV, Madison's CW, that's local here, gas prices going down for Memorial Day weekend. Gas Buddy finds. From Nick Viviani. The price of gasoline in Madison slipped a bit from last week's high, yet remained more than a dime higher than they were this time last month, according to a new survey from Gas Buddy. Tell us what they were last year. Tell us what they were last year, man. According to a new survey from Gas Buddy, sounding a positive note, however, was the company's head of petroleum analysis, Patrick DeHaan, who predicted further price declines heading into the long weekend. For those hitting the road, we should see prices inch lower in the coming week, through at least Memorial Day, so motorists need not rush to fill their tanks as the drop in oil prices should manifest into lower gas prices as we begin the summer driving season, he said. The spread of gas prices drivers could find across Madison narrowed significantly compared to last week, when the most expensive price the analysis found was approximately $0.50 more than the cheapest. Now a little less than a quarter separates the highest price, $2.89, from the least expensive, $2.85. Citywide, the average stood at $2.78 per gallon, based on the survey of 200 stations, Gas Buddy reported. The nationwide average, which topped $3 for the first time since 2016, 2 weeks ago, remains above that threshold, but also fell nearly 2 cents to $3.02 per gallon. But don't worry, Trump totally destroyed the gas prices. The effects of the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack are dissipating, DeHaan noted, and should provide less concern for anyone headed to the southeast part of the country for the 3-day weekend. So, couple competing there. You decide, what do you think the gas is going to do? Do you think it's going to stay up? Do you think it's going to come back down? Keep an eye on it. Make sure, like they said, once you get down to that quarter tank, fill her back up, especially if you're going to travel. And if you're in a high tax state like my neighbor to the south, come back up here and buy gas up here, because Illinois prices suck. All right. That's what we have on finance for the day. It was an extended finance morning here, but now we need to get into the rest of the stuff here. Starting with, from George Takai, tweeting out, "Oh my, Trump really wants to tweet about the grand jury now convening in New York to investigate and consider indictments against him. He really, really wants to. Oh my." Rent-free in their heads, I'm telling you guys. Absolutely rent-free in their heads. Let's see what this goes along with, though. Starting with the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. Prosecutor in Trump criminal probe convenes grand jury to hear evidence, weigh potential charges. From Shana Jacobs and David A. Farenthold. Manhattan's DA has convened the grand jury that is expected to decide whether to indict former President Trump, other executives at his company, or the business itself, should prosecutors present the panel with criminal charges, according to 2 people familiar with the development. The panel was convened recently and will sit 3 days a week for 6 months. It is likely to hear several matters, not just the Trump case, during the duration of its term, which is longer than a traditional New York State grand jury assignment. These people said, like others, they spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the ongoing investigation. Generally, special grand juries, such as this one, are convened to participate in long-term matters rather than to hear evidence of crimes charged routinely. The move indicates that District Attorney Cyrus R. Vance Jr.'s investigation of the former president and his business has reached an advanced stage after more than 2 years. It suggests, too, that Vance believes he has found evidence of a crime, if not by Trump, then by somebody potentially close to him or by his company. This is the point where most of your left has stopped reading, because they saw this up here. Manhattan's district attorney has convened the grand jury that is expected to decide whether to indict the former president, Donald Trump. That right there, at this comma right here, was where they stopped. They're gonna convict him. He's going to prison. Look, he's a criminal. Yeah! But there's so much more that actually goes along with this article and everything else that goes with this. And really, honestly, first and foremost, and we've looked at the charges that are coming out. It's potentially undervaluing property for taxes. It's tax evasion. A, he's probably going to pay a fine, and B, and that's if he's involved at all, because a lot of this is going to come down to his company and probably lower middle management in the company. That's where we're going to see most likely the majority of this. And B, if it does get to him, he's going to throw a lot of interesting people onto the bus once he's up there. I hate to tell you this, but this is a common practice in New York, because the taxes are so unbelievably high, and they look the other way for their rich fucking donor buddies. This is going nowhere. But that's not what the people saw. The people came out and saw, oh my God, Donald, he might get indicted. He might go to prison. He's going to prison. Oh my God, he's going to prison. Yay! And like we saw with fucking Takai, well, he wants to tweet about this. Honestly, looking at this right now, I would actually imagine that Cyrus Vance is probably praying for Trump to get let back on Twitter at this point too. Because, I mean, Takai, broken clock, Takai is fucking right about this. The Donald would sit back and his Twitter finger would be going nuts over this right now. I have to believe that his Twitter finger would be going nuts with a lot of stuff that would be self-incriminating. And a lot of people, I mean, a lot of non-Trump people like Ben Shapiro were ready, willing, and able to come up and say, okay, gang, Donald Trump would be a great president if he would just stop tweeting. If they would take his phone away from him, if they would change his Twitter password, and he would stop tweeting, okay? Because he says a lot of stupid stuff. 45th president of the United States said a bunch of stupid stuff. That's what's going to say on his tombstone, okay? And really, honestly, he can't say anything about this. I mean, he can throw something out from the office of the 45th president of the United States, the website that nobody looks at anymore. But for the most part, he's crippled. He can't say a word, and he can't incriminate himself on this, if there's anything to even incriminate on it. That Twitter ban may have been the difference between a conviction for something that I almost guarantee he didn't do, and an acquittal. So, with that, plus on top of this isn't just, and I mean, a lot of people are coming out here. First and foremost, it looks from what I can see, from what I can tell from reading social media, from perusing the people who are talking about this, it looks like a lot of these people believe that this is the jury, not the grand jury, which means that the trial's already going on, and he's headed to conviction, because you're guilty until proven innocent, especially if you have an R next to your name. But just to read some of the posts out there, it does sound like they actually believe, like, this isn't an indictment, that he's already been indicted, and now he's going to trial right now. That's what I'm pretty sure they believe. And that's not true. Right now, the grand jury is listening to this, looking at the evidence and saying, can we charge a crime or not? So this might not even go to trial. Now, given the fact that it's New York, and I'm sure they went juror shopping, there's a good possibility that this one does go to trial based on the fact that there are a lot of people who are looking to say, he denied the first woman president her rightful place in the history books. We need to take him down. And I guarantee we're going to see a lot of that. But other than that, yeah, I don't think this goes anywhere. I would laugh if there was an acquittal in New York over this. but we'll see. I want to read just a little bit from the Associated Press. Talking a little bit more about the same topic here. New grand jury seated for next stage of Trump investigation. From Michael R. Sisak. New York prosecutors have convened a special grand jury to consider evidence in a criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump's business dealings, a person familiar with the matter told the Associated Press on Tuesday. The development signals that the Manhattan DA's office was moving towards seeking charges as a result of its 2-year investigation, which included a lengthy legal battle to obtain Trump's tax records. The person familiar with the matter was not authorized to speak publicly and did so on condition of anonymity. The news was first reported by the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance Jr. is conducting a wide-ranging investigation into a variety of matters such as hush money payments paid to women on Trump's behalf, property valuations, and employee compensation. What's illegal about the hush money? I don't understand this. Are you going to try and say prostitution? What? With giving somebody money is not a crime. It's shady, it's shifty, but it's not a crime. And that is so riddled with reasonable doubt, I don't even know where they think they're going to come up with something on this. The Democratic prosecutor has been using an investigative grand jury through the course of his probe to issue subpoenas and obtain documents. That panel kept working while other grand juries and court activities were shut down because of the coronavirus pandemic. The investigation includes scrutiny of Trump's relationship with his lenders, a land donation he made to qualify for an income tax deduction, and tax write-offs his company claimed on millions of dollars in consulting fees that it paid. The new grand jury could eventually be asked to consider returning indictments. While working on the case, it would also be hearing other matters. The Post reported that the grand jury will meet 3 days a week for 6 months. Trump contends the investigation is a witch hunt. Well, it kind of is. It kind of is. But don't worry, we don't use the courts to go after our political enemies in this country. That's something they do in a banana republic. And that's not what this is. That's something they do in a tin pot dictatorship. Hell, that's something they do in 18th century England. But we are none of those things, right? This is purely political and an affront to the almost 75 million voters who supported me in the presidential election, which was totally rigged, okay? I am the greatest president in history. Sleepy Joe. I can't actually say that on YouTube because they'll shut me down. Because Joe Biden is the most popular president in history and got more votes than anybody else in the world. Honk, wink, wink. Vance's office declined to comment. The new grand jury is the latest sign of increasing momentum in the criminal investigation into the Republican ex-president and his company, the Trump Organization. AG Letitia James said last week she assigned 2 lawyers to work with Vance's office on the probe after her civil investigation into Trump evolved into a criminal matter. James, a Democrat, said her office is also continuing its civil investigation into Trump. She did not say what prompted her office to expand its investigation into a criminal probe. I know. Pick me. It's politics, especially considering the fact that she ran on putting Trump in prison. All right, so that's what we see coming back up out of this. And of course, don't forget that President Biden is the most popular, the best vote. There was nothing wrong with the 2020 election. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everything was above board, and President Biden totally got as more votes than even Barack Obama. He's even more popular than Barack Obama. Honk, wink, wink. All right, let's keep going here. I got a bunch of other stuff to get to. Oh, let's talk about this fucking plant. Republican House leaders condemn Marjorie Taylor Greene's appalling comparisons of vaccines and masks to Nazism. From Eliza Relman. Republican House leadership and other prominent conservatives condemned GOP Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene for repeatedly comparing COVID-19 mitigation to Nazism. Greene, a far-right freshman, no, she's not. She's a fucking plant. She's a fucking Democrat at this point. You look at her actions and you tell me that she is being realistic and not acting at this point. From Georgia, who's promoted a slew of conspiracy theories, said the government and private companies are discriminating against those who haven't received the COVID-19 vaccine in the same way Nazis persecuted Jews in the Holocaust. Vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo just like the Nazis forced the Jewish people to wear a gold star. Greene tweeted on Tuesday morning, vaccine passports and mask mandates create discrimination against unvaxxed people who trust their immune systems to a virus that is 99% survivable. Greene also said on a podcast last week that the House mask mandate is the exact type of abuse Nazis committed against the Jews. Amid mounting pressure on Republicans to condemn Greene's remarks, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy issued a statement on Tuesday calling Greene's comments wrong and appalling. Marjorie is wrong in her international decision to compare the horrors of the Holocaust with wearing masks is appalling, McCarthy said in a statement. Let me be clear, the House Republican Conference condemns this language. Which is interesting because McCarthy would not throw her under the bus under anything else that she said, and this is the step that was too far for her, which, I mean, it kind of was. But not only that, you've also lost Shapiro at this point. Don't you feel proud, Marjorie Taylor Greene? Ben Shapiro tweets out yesterday. Let's read Marjorie's tweet first. Vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star. Vaccine passports and mask mandates create discrimination against unvaxxed people who trust their immune system to a virus that is 99% survivable. And Shapiro, in all of his Shapiro-y goodness, quote tweets this saying, okay, gang, this is demented nonsense. This is nothing like the Holocaust, and any comparison thereto is both insulting and insane. I've also noticed that the media attention on MTG's bizarrely nutso Holocaust analogy are completely silent by the squad's de facto support for genocidal anti-Jewish terrorist group Hamas. Okay, gang? And yeah, I mean, there's sticks right there with actually a good take on this one here. She's not comparing it to the Holocaust. She is comparing it to one aspect thereof. That would be like me comparing a fern to an apple tree and you claiming I'm comparing the fern to deciduous photosynthetic life forms. And I do see where, I mean, if she's actually being truthful about this, once again, she's a plant. She's absolutely a plant. But if this were a legitimate thing, because I've said the same thing, you have to have your gold star or your CDC logo to participate in society. Otherwise, you're a second-class citizen. It's kind of the opposite of the gold star, actually, but it's still the same sentiment. If you have your little token, you get to participate in decent society. Otherwise, you're a second-class citizen relegated to the sewers. It's kind of like Demolition Man, which I've never seen all the way through, but I've seen that part. Where everybody who will get up and can't curse gets to live above ground and go to Taco Bell, the fancy sit-down restaurant that you need an evening gown to wear, to eat in rather, because they won the franchise wars, or you live in the underground because you choose not to go there, and every time you say fuck, something else spits out another fine to you. So, yeah, there's that. But of course, along with this, you also find that as soon as she comes back up, and this is where I think that she's a plant, because they keep finding this stuff that they couldn't dig up during the campaign. And with as much attention as this woman is getting, and the fact that so many other high-profile people are getting so much attention, I can't believe for a second, for an absolute second, that none of this came up during the campaign. That's why I think she's a plant. Because this is all out there, and none of it surfaced. They were able to find that Judge Moore was cruising the mall for kids in the 70s, but they couldn't find this during Marjorie Taylor Greene's House campaign. Let's watch. Newsweek tweets out, video from a 2020 City Council meeting in Dalton, Georgia shows then congressional candidate Marjorie Taylor Greene making an argument to keep all monuments, even going as far as to include figures such as Adolf Hitler and Satan himself, for the purpose of teaching history. Let's listen.
My name is Marjorie Greene. Thank you all so much for hearing everyone and listening to so many people. And thank you for hearing me as well. I just wanted to tell everyone that I support keeping all of our monuments, and I'll tell you why. As a mother of 3 kids, I always want to be able to point to statues, monuments, or any type of history so that I can tell my children and teach them lessons in our country, whether they're good, bad, embarrassing, something that I'm happy about, something that I'm sad about, or something that I wish hadn't happened. We're seeing situations where Christopher Columbus, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all kinds of statues are being attacked, and it seems to be just an effort to take down history. And whether I see a statue that may be something that I would fully disagree with, like Adolf Hitler, maybe a statue of Satan himself, I would not want to say take it down. But again, it's so that I could tell my children and teach others about who these people are, what they did, and what they may be about.
Which, that's actually a good take. I'm not going to disparage Marjorie Taylor Greene for that take. That's actually a good take. Because that's kind of one of the arguments that was being made for the statues, and I agree with that. If you relegate these things out of the history books, out of the statuaries, out of everywhere else, you can't sit back and discuss the horrors that some of these people did. Now, yes, okay, Georgia, I understand, also is promoting and loving of General Lee. Hell, the car that drove around Georgia, running moonshine back in the 70s, or at least on TV, was named the General Lee. They typically like him down there, but we can sit back here and still look at this and say now that, hey, this guy was fighting so that the South could keep slavery, plus, also keep their own federalism and their own ability to stand away from the federal government. But we don't talk about that in the history books. We make it all about the slavery at this point. But regardless, as she said, even if it was Hitler hitting himself, no, they shouldn't be honoring the statue. But if the statue is already there, we can look back and, the little girl can come down and pull up the sleeve and say, "Daddy, Daddy, who's that guy with the funny mustache?" And you can come back and say, that's probably one of the most horrifying people that ever lived. Let me tell you about what happens when your entire society gets whipped up into a mob mentality against one particular group of people, and what you're seeing around around this country right now. Regardless, if that video had popped up during the campaign, that would have been damning to Greene, just because of the advertising material that the DNC, with a lot of fucking money, can put around and push around. That woman is a plant. Because it looks like they almost specifically ignored stuff like this so they could get her in here, and now they've got somebody to point to that isn't evil and orange and evil, but they can still say is evil and orange and evil. Let's keep going. From CBS, Governor Abbott says he will sign a bill that prevents cities from defunding the police. From Caitlin O'Kane. Texas Governor Greg Abbott vowed he would sign legislation that would make it harder for communities to defund the police after a shooting Saturday in Austin. The Republican governor retweeted the Austin Police Association president's information about how long it took officers to respond to the shooting, adding, "This is what defunding the police looks like." Austin Police Association President Kenneth Cassidy tweeted that the call about the shooting came in around 5:35 a.m. on Sunday morning. No units available citywide for 12 minutes, he said. He said Austin police arrived on the scene 16 minutes after the call came out, and one victim was critically injured after being shot in the head. Police say there appeared to be a disturbance between two drivers and that it is possible that a bystander was shot in the head. According to CBS Austin, no arrests have been made. In his tweet, Abbott wrote, Austin is incapable of timely responding to victims shot in the head. Texas won't tolerate this. We're about to pass a law that I will sign that will prevent cities from defunding police. Sanity and safety will return, Abbott said. The bill states a municipality must hold an election if it proposes a budget for a fiscal year that, compared with the previous year's budget, reduces funding, reallocates funds, or reduces the number of police officers on the department is allowed to employ. The bill passed in the state Senate but was postponed by the House on Sunday. While Austin defunded its police department last year, supporters have said defunding isn't about doing away with all funding for police departments. The practice is often the reallocation of some money from law enforcement to other services that could help the community. Several other U.S. cities have also defunded their police, some allocating funds to mental health specialists who can help answer distress calls. More than 55 law enforcement agencies in Colorado now participate in co-responder programs where law enforcement is paired with a behavioral health specialist, according to CBS Denver. A similar program is being tested in 2 New York City neighborhoods. Oh my god. Oh. Well, F in the chat for the mental health professionals. F in the chat for those people, because some of them are not going to be making it home. I can tell you that. Well, they have to go out there because if somebody is having a mental health issue, it's horrible for them to be met with a person with a gun. Well, until that person pulls out a golf club or a knife or an oversized black dildo and starts beating the mental health professional with one of the 3 options I just mentioned. I do like the fact that, though, this article, in spite of the fact that most people stopped reading about here, I think that's about where they stopped. The article actually does go down to talk about what defunding the police means and what that means for it. Because there's a lot of conversation right now that goes along with the defund the police movement, where I am specifically convinced that people like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez believe defunding means eliminating completely. Because I'm convinced that that's what they believe defunding Planned Parenthood means. They think that if you defund Planned Parenthood, you get rid of it entirely, which is not the case. Planned Parenthood as a private entity, if we defund Planned Parenthood, as a private entity still exists. And I think a lot of conservatives don't understand this either, to be completely honest. If you defund Planned Parenthood as an entity, it still exists as a private entity. We just take the government funding away from it, at which they have to get all of their money from services and insurance costs. We take the government out of it. Now, if we take the government out of police, and I know there are a lot of libertarians that believe that policing should be a private matter, should be a private industry. I don't. That's one of the few things that I relegate to the government, where if they're going to make the laws, then they are responsible for the payment of the people to enforce them. And if they don't want to pay the people to enforce them, roll back some of the fucking laws so you don't have to pay so many people to enforce them. I'm in favor of defunding the police, but you have to take away some of their responsibility too. And I'm glad this article, like I said, pointed that out. It said that the funding was for reallocating rather than just completely eliminating police. So that's what I see coming back, up out of that. Let's grab one here from the Daily Wire. 20 state AGs oppose Biden's nominee for ATF director because of his extreme positions. From Beth Bauman. On Tuesday, a group of 20 Republican attorneys general sent a letter to Senate leadership opposing President Biden's nominee for director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which should be a convenience store, not a government bureau, David Shipman. According to the letter, which the Daily Caller first obtained, the attorneys general are concerned about Shipman's past as a gun control advocate. Per a report from the Daily Wire, Shipman previously worked for the gun control organizations Everytown for Gun Safety and Giffords as a registered lobbyist. In those roles, he advocated for a number of key anti-Second Amendment pieces of legislation, including an assault weapons ban, implementation of extreme risk protection orders, commonly referred to as red flag laws, a ban on bump stocks, and against concealed carry reciprocity, where concealed carry permits are recognized in all 50 states. Early on in the COVID-19 lockdowns, the ATF nominee also advocated for firearms dealers to not be classified as essential businesses. That's probably because once everything started going, firearms manufacturers and dealers started making bank. Chipman's resume also includes other possibly problematic positions, including serving as the case agent in the Branch Davidian trial. In that situation, the ATF was interested in bringing down a religious cult in Waco, Texas for stockpiling illegal firearms. The sting resulted in a 51-day standoff with cult leader David Koresh, who refused to turn over his firearms. In that standoff, 76 Davidians died, 25 of whom were children. Chipman later denied the ATF was responsible for the botched raid, the Daily Wire previously reported. In the letter, 20 attorneys general made it clear that the right to keep and bear arms is not about shooting as a hobby, it's about preserving a way of life. Firearms are beyond a hobby or passion. They are a part of our national heritage and everyday life for tens of millions of Americans, particularly those of us who live in rural areas. We use them to hunt, protect livestock, to provide a peace of mind when law enforcement may be miles away, the coalition wrote. This is why Mr. Chipman's past affiliation with anti-gun organizations and his extreme positions on commonly owned firearms is so concerning to us as attorneys general, and why he is unfit to be confirmed as head of the ATF. Slow clap, you guys, because that's absolutely correct. This guy should not be anywhere near the levers of power as so it comes with the ATF. He shouldn't be anywhere near this because he struck. I mean, other than the fact that there are going to be an awful lot of boating accidents coming up here in the near future, I mean, this guy, he's got a clear track record of being a gun grabber. So does Biden, but he totally got elected in the most freest and fair, most popular election in history, honk honk, win-win. He was totally fairly elected. But yeah, this guy is a full-on gun grabber. And we're getting to a point where federalism is starting to come back around. I would not be surprised, and I talked with my friend Sewell about this last night, if if the federal government, rather, starts to look at some of these states who are starting to turn back and say, fuck you, federal government, we can do it better. Because we're starting to see a lot of that. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know how they've started to crack down on the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and the Fifth Amendment. I wouldn't be surprised if progressives in government start to crack down on the 10th Amendment. Because the states are starting to push back. This isn't a federal harmony anymore. This is states starting to recognize, hey, we don't want to do what the federal government does, and we have the right not to fucking do it. The federal government has too much power, and I'm so glad to see it. I do think that some of these people might have rolled over if this was a Trump nominee. So, there we go. Good on them. From Politico, Blinken announces $110 million in new Gaza funding. Now comes the hard part. From Ryan Heath, the race to help innocent victims of the Israel-Hamas conflict is on. The actual flow of dollars will prove more difficult. The Biden admin's effort to keep Congress on side and Hamas at arm's length while battling donor fatigue among foreign governments is already at risk of derailing crucial assistance. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced $110 million in new economic assistance to Palestinians during a visit to Ramallah, the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority, including $5.5 million in immediate relief to Gaza. Including comments made in April, we're in the process of providing $360 million in urgent support to the Palestinian people, Blinken said. But overall, the Biden admin's commitment to $80 million down on the $440 million the Obama administration delivered to Palestinians in 2014, the year of the previous Gaza conflict. UN humanitarian workers on the ground in Gaza told Politico that it will take weeks to know how much money is needed to repair damages inflicted on thousands of buildings during the May conflict, and that the hidden cost of the conflict is much higher than the physical toll. The biggest need is mental health, said Matthias Schmalhe, the Gaza director of the United Nations Relief Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, the main UN agency working in Gaza, in an interview. You cannot live through the 4 wars and think it doesn't affect you. Schmalhe fears the U.S. legal framework, which designates Hamas as a terrorist organization and limits what funding can be offered to the Palestinian Authority, will slow down or even prevent the swift delivery of the promised aid. Why are we sending money over there? Especially to Hamas. No, that'll totally go to humanitarian aid if you send it over to Hamas. And they won't skim 90% of it off the top and then just give the crumbs back to the people. And they'll totally rebuild everything from this, right? Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Now, I understand that these people need help. They do. But we're going to hand this money. This goes the same thing with the Northern Triangle and down in Central America. We're going to send all this money over here because that's the problem. It's all economic. It's all, we just need to send them more money, and then they can go take care of their people. And then the people don't have to run to the U.S. No. The governments in these situations, because we're going to hand it to the governments in these situations are going to keep as much money as they can. They're going to distribute a little bit of out to their people to make it look good. And then they're going to use it to buy weapons or embezzle it for themselves or whatever the fuck else tin pot dictators do when they get money from the United States. When you send money to governments like this, it doesn't go to the people. So it might be time to start turning the spigot off in some of these situations. Especially given the way that it looked like, and this is even with the left-wing spin of the media, the way that it looked like the war was going on in Israel and Gaza this time through. Where we're sending off empty rockets with no warheads just to antagonize and play with the Iron Dome and try to get the Iron Dome to shoot things down and use up their munitions. I'm in favor, in this particular situation with Hamas, of you made your bed, you sleep in it. Because a population, and this is the other thing to keep in mind, a population is 3 missed meals that they say? 3 or 4? I think it's 4. It's 4 missed meals away from a revolution. Keep that in mind. That was the same thing with Iran when we started throwing sanctions on them. And people said, well, you're throwing sanctions against the Iranian people. Well, good. Because they're 4 missed meals away from a revolution over there, too. Start letting some of those kids starve and letting people start to see that it's the government's problem. And you'll see that government start to change really fucking quick. Really fucking quick. Or we can just keep paying money to these corrupted governments and see how much of it actually makes it down to the people. You decide. From the Hill. Romney, first GOP senator to say he would vote for the January 6th commission bill because he's Mitt fucking Romney. From Jordan Kearney. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah said on Monday that he would support a House-passed bill to create a commission to probe the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Romney's comments make him the first GOP senator to say he would vote for the bill, which needs the support of 10 Republicans to pass the Senate. Asked how he would vote if the Senate Majority Leader, Charles U. Schumer, tried to start debate on the House bill, a move that requires 60 votes to defeat a filibuster, Romney told reporters, "Yeah, I would support that bill." Romney wasn't asked how he would vote on final passage of the House bill, which would need only a simple majority. Spokespeople for Romney didn't immediately respond to a question about if he would change his vote after helping defeat a GOP filibuster. But Romney's comments come as Schumer has vowed that he will bring the bill up for a vote, setting up what could be the first successful filibuster of the 117th Congress. Schumer hasn't said when he'll bring up the House bill, but characterized the timing on Monday as very soon, very soon. But Democrats remain short of the votes needed to defeat a filibuster as GOP opposition to the House bill, as it's currently drafted, hardens. Senator Bill Cassidy previously told reporters he was inclined to vote for it. Meanwhile, Susan Collins has started discussions with Democrats about potential amendments to the House bill. All three voted to convict Trump earlier this year of inciting nope, I can't say that word. Of the selfie fest, though they fell short of the number of votes needed to ultimately do so. Of course he did, because he's Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney. Yeah, the wind is blowing from the left today. I'm just going to go with the left. All right, let's grab one here from Fox News. Biden State Department signals support for BLM flags to be flown at U.S. embassies. From Houston Keene. The Department of State under President Biden issued guidance to all diplomatic and consular posts encouraging official displays of support for BLM on the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's death, on May 25th and beyond, according to a new report. According to a leaked memo from an anonymous State Department source, the department wrote that it supports the use of the term Black Lives Matter in messaging content as well as in speeches and foreign diplomatic engagements on May 25th and beyond. You know what this is? This is the government picking and choosing winners and losers. Because BLM is a private organization. Yes, we can say the phrase all day long, but remember, when you're picking up merchandising and you're advertising and you're putting the flag up around the world, you are advertising for a group that is a private organization. And the government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. The memo allows U.S. diplomats to fly the BLM flag around of embassies. Fox News verified the authenticity of the memo, first reported by Human Events, a conservative American political news and analysis newspaper and website. Specifically, the memo acts as an authorization for agency higher-ups to display a BLM flag on the external-facing flagpole to any chiefs of mission who determine such a display is appropriate in light of local conditions. In a statement to Fox News on Tuesday, a spokesperson for the State Department said the agency does not comment on the authenticity or veracity of allegedly leaked documents as a general matter. Similar to the BLM banner, the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken also previously authorized embassies to fly the LGBTQIA plus RPPAMGWRX flag from May 17th through the end of June in recognition of Pride Month celebrations, reversing a Trump-era policy. BLM has come under scrutiny recently for different reasons, including when armed BLM protesters swarmed a restaurant in Louisville on the anniversary of Breonna Taylor's death, and when BLM supporters rallied behind a carjacker killed in a police-involved shooting in Minnesota, but left after learning he was white. Additionally, BLM co-founder Patrice Kahn-Cullors, a self-described Marxist, came under heavy fire in the media after purchasing several multi-million-dollar homes across the U.S. So, yeah, every time you buy the merch, you put the merch up, you wave the flag and everything else, you're putting money into a private organization. Good job. All right. What else do we have here? Speaking of people who are running in for the government, Gabe F. Guidarini tweets out, "Remember to ignore grift candidates and encourage others to do the same." So this is actually an interesting campaign ad that I wanted to share with you guys here. This is from Alex Stovall, who tweets out, "My name is Alex Stovall. I'm a Republican. I'm 26. I'm a chaplain. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm America First. Now I'm running for Congress to take on AOC. Share this to spread the word." And I'm going to play this advertisement for you. even though I just scrolled down far enough that I made a spoiler alert off of this. I'm going to play this ad for you and see if you guys can tell me what's wrong in this situation.
Socialists like AOC hate two things, God and America. I'm Alex Stovall, a 26-year-old Army officer chaplain, running to stop AOC and her cronies from taking over our Congress and our country. I don't fight for this country to watch it get taken over by AOC, and I need your help to flip this seat and stop her corruption of our Congress. To stop AOC and her cronies, we gotta fight fire with fire. That's why I'm running to become the youngest black Republican congressman in U.S. history. I will be the perfect voice to cut through their BS. Can you contribute $26 right now? We need your contributions to help me get the word out about my campaign to restore faith, family, and freedom to our country. Together, we will take back Congress for the people in 2022 and save our country. Thank you, and God bless America.
Is that New York? Because that doesn't look like New York over there. In fact, that kind of looks like Arizona. And yes, Biden voters posting their L's online replies back to this. He's running in Arizona against AOC. And I've talked about this on numerous occasions. I would like, at some point, to run for Congress or the Senate to counteract the bad ideas of some of the people in there. But I'm not going to run to come out and specifically say I'm running because I want to take on Bernie Sanders or AOC or somebody like that. I've thought about running for Senate just so I can go tell Bernie Sanders that he can fuck himself on the Senate floor and then immediately get censured. I've thought about doing that, but to run a campaign, it would be positive. You can't run a campaign of a negative. I want to run against X person or work against X person. Tell the people of Arizona what you're going to do for the people of Arizona. How you are going to represent Arizona to the United States Congress, your district. Tell them what you want to do for their district, what you want to see the federal government come back and do for them. Not that you just want to take down AOC. And will you send me please $26? All right, let's grab one here from CNN. Pompeo-led effort to hunt down COVID lab theory shut down by Biden admin over concerns about quality of evidence. From Kylie Atwood. President Biden's team shut down a closely held State Department effort launched late in the Trump admin to prove the coronavirus originated in a Chinese lab over concerns about the quality of its work, according to 3 sources familiar with the decision. The existence of the State Department inquiry and its termination this spring by the Biden admin, neither of which has been previously reported, comes to light amid renewed interest in whether the virus could have leaked out of a Wuhan lab. With links to the Chinese military, the Biden admin is also facing scrutiny of its own efforts to determine if the Chinese government was responsible for the virus. You notice people actually started saying, oh yeah, it looks like this came out of a Chinese lab. Whoopsie! Sorry, Donald. Those involved in the previously undisclosed inquiry, which was launched last fall by allies of then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, said it was an honest effort to probe what many initially dismissed that China's biological weapons program could have had a greater role in the pandemic's origin in Wuhan, according to 2 additional sources. But the inquiry quickly became mired in internal discord amid concerns that it was part of a broader politicized effort by the Trump admin to blame China and cherry-pick facts to prove a theory. The decision to terminate the inquiry, which was run primarily out of the State Department's Arms Control and Verification Bureau, was made after Biden officials were briefed on the team's draft findings. In February and March of this year, the State Department spokesperson said questions were raised about the legitimacy of the findings and the project was deemed to be an ineffective use of resources, explained a source familiar with the decision. Well, plus, we're all talking about this now, and I mean, it's pretty well common knowledge that it came out of this lab. I don't think malice was involved. I don't think that this was a malicious thing, but I do think that it did get leaked out here, and that seems to be the general consensus at this point. I do know people that think that it was a bioweapon that was intended to take down Taiwan. I don't see enough evidence of that, but I do see enough evidence to say that it came out of the lab. Possibly as an accidental release because somebody was studying it and didn't have the right hazmat gear on. Alright, from the Blaze. Cheers break out in Senate after Paul Amendment passes banning gain-of-function research in China. From Breck Dumas. Cheers and applause rang out in the Senate chamber on Tuesday evening after passage of an amendment offered by Senator Rand Paul, which bans the use of U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund gain-of-function research in China. We may never know whether the pandemic arose from the lab in Wuhan, but we do know that so far no intermediate animal host has been discovered, Paul said in a speech ahead of the vote. Thousands of animals at the wet market have been looked at, he continued. None of them have carried COVID-19. We tried to infect COVID-19 into bats. It doesn't grow well in bats. It seems suitable for humans. He reiterated, we may not know whether this ever arose out of a Wuhan lab, but I think gain-of-function research, where we take a deadly virus, sometimes much more deadly than COVID, and then we increase its transmissibility to mammals, is wrong. In 2014, National Institutes of Health stopped all this research, the senator went on to say, adding, I'm using the same definition to say any gain-of-function research should not be funded in China with U.S. taxpayer dollars. The measure then passed by voice vote, prompting cheers and clapping from within the chamber. Let's watch.
Senator from Kentucky.
We may never know whether the pandemic arose from the lab in Wuhan, but we do know that so far no intermediate animal host has been discovered. Thousands of animals at the wet market have been looked at. None of them have carried COVID-19. We've tried to infect COVID-19 into bats. It doesn't grow well in bats. It seems most adapted and suitable for humans. We may not know whether this ever arose out of a Wuhan lab, but I think gain-of-function research, where we take a deadly virus, sometimes much more deadly than COVID, and then we increase its transmissibility to mammals, is wrong. In 2014, NIH stopped all of this research. I'm using the same definition to say any gain-of-function research should not be funded in China with U.S. taxpayer dollars, and I recommend a yes vote. Thank you.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to vitiate the 60-vote requirement for this amendment and yield back time.
Is there objection? Without objection. All time is yielded back. The question is now on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It seems as if the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Under the previous order, there will now be...
I expected more cheering than that, but yeah, absolutely. So, that's what we see coming back out of that, and I would love to see if the president would sign that into law, and if we could actually ban the use of the gain-of-function testing in China. Well, we can't ban it, but we can ban our funding of it. All right, from the Associated Press. This one comes back out of my state. Wisconsin Republicans quickly kill Medicaid expansion. Again. They keep trying to push this down Wisconsin's throat. They've been doing this since the Obama years. And the state of Wisconsin keeps telling the Obama admin and the federal government to go and fuck itself. Whether it comes from the governor's mansion or the state house. They keep saying no, which is good. This is by Scott Bauer. Republicans who control the Wisconsin legislature on Tuesday convened and within seconds ended a special session called by Democrat Governor Tony Evers to expand Medicaid, dashing chances for the state to receive a one-time bonus of $1 billion in federal coronavirus relief funding. The Senate and Assembly gavelled in and adjourned the special session in a mostly empty chamber with only a handful of lawmakers in attendance. The assembly session lasted all of about 40 seconds, while the Senate was done in less than 10 seconds. There was no debate, let alone any votes taken on the bill. Evers called on the legislature to pass. It marked the latest in a long line of defeats for Democrats on the issue. Democrats have for years advocated in vain to expand eligibility for the state's Medicaid program known as Badger Care Plus. This time, with $1 billion in federal stimulus money at play, Democrats said it made no sense to not join 38 other states in accepting expansion. Okay, so that's the legendary, come on guys, everyone else is doing it. Come on, just pass it. Democratic Assembly Minority Leader Gordon Hintz said rejecting Medicaid expansion was absurd and that no private business would make the same decision with so much federal money on the table. Wisconsin has essentially been handed a $1 billion lottery ticket, Hintz said. The only acceptable answer is to cash it, expanding Badger Care, and then invest it in our economic recovery. Republicans who have long opposed expansion call it the latest attempt a political stunt. Republicans say they don't want to move people from private insurance to the Badger Care Plus plan, and that they worry the federal money will dry up, forcing the state to pay a higher share for coverage. Evers called the special session last week, promising to use $850 million of the $1 billion in federal money for a host of economic development projects. That's not what it's for, Tony. It's not for economic development. It's for Medicaid expansion. See, that's the reason they keep denying this here. Right there. No, I don't want the whole thing. This right here. $850 million of this goes into special economic development projects. It's a slush fund. It's the federal government giving away a bunch of money to come back and say, hey, we're going to say that this is for Medicaid expansion, but, we don't see the books. We don't see what happens after it leaves our hands. This is a bribe for Evers to come back and do whatever it is the federal government wants. Evers called, Republicans have said if Evers wants to fund those projects, he could instead tap some of the $2.5 billion coming to the state under the coronavirus stimulus bill. Evers said in a statement after the vote, he called it breathtaking that Republicans would turn down $1 billion. No, that's good. I think we should be doing everything we can to make sure our economy bounces back from this pandemic. Then open it all back up. Get your fucking fingers out of it. And lower the taxes while you're at it. And this special session was about finding common ground and getting bipartisan support for our efforts, Evers said. Clearly, it's disappointing Republicans don't seem to want to take that responsibility seriously. They'll have to explain to Wisconsinites why they made the decision that they did today. Good. Good. I'm fucking glad. And I'll explain it to them. I will absolutely explain it to them. If you want to get all of Wisconsin looking at this stream, I will tell you why this was a bad idea. You want to spur business growth, lower the taxes, lower the tax burden, and lower the regulations. And let it all bounce back by itself. But I got a feeling, Tony Evers, puppet of the teachers union, that you don't want to do that because then you lose money that you can give as a handout back to the fucking teachers union. So that's happening here in Wisconsin. This has been a long time thing. They've been trying to force Medicaid expansion, like I said, since the Obama years. Since the ACA came out, they've been trying to force this on Wisconsin. And Wisconsin keeps telling them no. Because it comes with Common Core, it comes with a bunch of other hooks buried into it. What did I say when the stimulus came out? Nothing comes out of the government without a hook buried into it. And there are plenty of hooks in this one too. This Medicaid expansion that they've been trying to do since 2010 has got more hooks in it than a tackle box. From Fox News. Didn't I read this already? I'm positive I read this already. We're going to defund the cities that defund the police. Yeah, I read this already. All right, we're getting rid of that. All right, then I just got a couple more here, and then we'll do something that I'm thankful for and head out of here for the day. Moderna says COVID-19 vaccine is highly effective for kids as young as 12. From Sam Raskin. Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine is safe and highly effective for adolescents, the company said Tuesday, as it hopes to seek regulatory approval for youngsters as early as June. In a phase 2 of 3 trial involving more than 3,700 children ages 12 to 17, none of the kids who received the 2-dose Moderna shots came down with COVID-19 symptoms, meaning the vaccine was 100% effective 14 days after the second shot. After one dose, the vaccine was 93% effective, the vaccine maker said. Meanwhile, 4 adolescents in the placebo group came down with the beer bug. We are encouraged that mRNA 1273 was highly effective at preventing COVID-19 in adolescents, Moderna Chief Executive Officer Stefan Bancel said in a statement. Bancel said the pharmaceutical company will submit the results to the FDA and global regulators in early June to ask the vaccine be approved. We remain committed to doing our part to help end the commie fucking coup, he said. Side effects in the trial were mild, the most common being headaches, fatigue, myalgia, and chills after the second dose of the vaccine, Moderna reported. The promising study comes after the federal regulators authorized the use of Pfizer's COVID-19 jab for kids aged 12 to 15 on May 10th. Yep, train them to come and get that every year, starting at a very, very young age at this point. Well, they don't have the ability to come back and think for themselves and say, what the fuck are you putting into my body? Now, if this was a permanent vaccine, as we were first talking about this, I would come back and say, oh, well, okay, you're getting them in early so they've got the resistance and the immunity for when they get older. But now that we keep hearing that the kids, or that the shot rather is going to need to, I mean, they're going to need a new vaccine every year, just like the flu shot. Now that they're coming out and saying that out loud, I see no reason for this because the kids have almost 100% immunity from this disease. Symptom-wise anyway, I'm sure there's still carriers, but symptom-wise, they have almost 100% immunity naturally. This is a disease that attacks the elderly and the comorbid. Not the kids. My big question is, how do you tell? How can you tell? If you've got a vaccine that's got a 100% efficacy rate in kids who have almost 100% efficacy rate all by themselves. No, this is just training. Like I said, if this was a one-time shot that you had immunity from the disease forever because the mRNA has taught your body to fight it forever, then I would say, okay, well, good. Well, they're getting it out of the way early then. So, you're getting the vaccine at a point where you have a healthier immune system and you can better battle the side effects. That I could say, but the fact that they're talking about getting this every year, now I'm suspicious. Now I have questions. Now I have to wonder what's going on. All right. And the last one. A video that was submitted to me via the Discord from my friend Darth Spartacus, who I didn't paladin, says, I actually agree with something that Bosch said. And this is talking about what we're seeing going into Pride Month. Let's have a listen.
Hating prude types say that we shouldn't be teaching about non-heterosexual identity in school, and we say sexuality isn't the same thing as being sexual. And then you guys cross your fingers behind your backs, run off and say, but actually, I'm gonna wear a fucking dog gimp suit at this public event and be in full visibility of children while my throbbing erection strains the fabric of my tiny thong, okay? Stop. And this isn't even to speak of the optics of it. You really want queer people to be represented in their entire... Then don't bring kids to Pride. Kids can be gay! Why are you ostracizing an under 18 demographic from a celebration of their identity because you're too horny to keep it in your fucking pants? Fuck you. Jesus. Kids should go to Pride. It should be a cool thing it should be a block party with cotton candy and tie-dye shirt makers where you use the rainbow colors to make tie-dye shirts. It should be a community fair. If you want a kink thing, go to a private venue where you can find limitless fucking armies of gays who want their ass plowed by randos, okay? This is so reductive. I'd love to explain how kink and pride is made a fucking orgy. No, stop! Your kink isn't a discriminated identity. It's not. I don't care how many times subs try to make it out to be. You being a leather fetishist is not a fucking demographic that you're oppressed alongside, okay? You're not celebrating the liberation of people who wear leather in public. It's not a queer thing. Pride is queer. Straights wear leather. Gays wear leather. I don't care. Maybe gays do it more, but yes, it fucking is. All right, well, you know what else is part of queer pride? You all getting fucking bad. I actually can't believe you people. You're fucking... Stop fucking in front of children, you fucking pedo creep.
Well, that will lead us right into what I'm thankful for at this point here. And thank you, Darth Spartacus, for bringing this up where I could hear this. And by the way, I listened to this for the first time with you guys. So everybody who's listening to this, you're seeing my genuine reaction because I hadn't listened to that before. But with that, I mean... Okay. I am not a tradcon. As much as the Libertarian Party thinks that I'm a tradcon, I'm not a tradcon. I am in my own house. Like, as I'm growing older and my relationships are evolving, as I'm getting into more and more adult relationships and better relationships, I'm becoming more tradcon in my own life. But as far as you out there who are watching this, and the people who will watch this in posterity, and, you know, when Jared Holt clips this out to try to make me out to a hate monger when I run for office, when he comes back out to try to clip this out to make it seem like I am this completely anti-gay bigot who hates all gays and thinks that all gays want to die, and this and that and the next thing. I don't care who you fuck. As long as it's not me, I don't care who you fuck. Who you fuck and how you pee is of no difference to me. One of my favorite people in the world is a trans girl. And she's awesome. I don't care. What's down here doesn't matter to me. And this is where it's going with pride and how pride is changing. Now, you know, my godmother was essentially married to a woman. I mean, there was no gay marriage at the time, and they decided never to get married too because they found religious conviction and they didn't want to use the religious ceremony to celebrate the sin that they both participated in. This is something that my aunt's life partner actually said to me, is that homosexuality is a sin and they don't want to bring that into religion. But the thing with pride is it wasn't about the fetishes, like Vosh said. The original pride parades were people who were celebrating that love is love, and that two men can kiss and two women can kiss, and they can go out and cohabitate. Not necessarily get married at the time, but they could go out and cohabitate. And now we're seeing people walking around in suits of dildos. And this goes right into the thing that I'm thankful for. This goes absolutely into the thing that I'm thankful for. That I live in a place. And, you know, I've lived in cities too, but I've never had to deal with the fact that, you know, in Kenosha, that wasn't a thing. In Kenosha, Pride Parade, if it did happen, was still somewhat normal. Where people went out and they were fully clothed. They went out and they did their thing and whatnot. And yes, I understand also the shock value of coming out and saying, I'm going to stick it in the face of the prudes and I'm going to come out and wear my leather. Well, you've got kids going to these things. And like Vosh said, if your hard-on is straining against the fabric of your thong at a parade where kids are, that's where there's a problem. Yes, take your kink somewhere else. Either that, or this is the other thing for parents, stop bringing your kids to these things. And it is a shame that they have to do these down Main Street too, if they're going to have the kinks in there. I mean, you've got to give and take at some point, because we're trying to protect the innocence of children in this. So either take your pride parade and put it back somewhere private, where you're not going to have the kids around, you know, like you do with a beer garden at a fair in a small town America, or something else where you don't want to have kids around. There are plenty of ways to fence this stuff off from kids and keep the kids from going in. Or tone it down a measure while you're going down Main Street. And good on Vosh. I'm thankful that I live in a place where I don't have to see and deal with any of this. Where we don't. Like, honestly, in my small town, I think that if they did try to do a dildo-clad suit with a guy marching down Main Street in this city, I think the parents of the little kids would probably beat the guy to death with the dildos on his suit for exposing their kids to that. And again, if that's how you choose to get off, that's on you. But it doesn't mean it has to be out on display. I don't have to see your dildos. I don't have to see you walking around in a leather thong with the dildo up your ass to support you screwing whoever it is that you want to screw. There is a difference. So, with that, we're going to head on out of here for the day. Let's throw some music up and go. Shall we? All right. Well, on that enlightening note, we're going to head on out of here for the day. And I'm going to head to work and go finish off what I have to do. I'm going to come home and my processor is going to be here. And then I can start building the computer. So I'm kind of excited for that as well. So looking forward to that probably sometime next week. Once I get all the scenes set up, we'll start to get the new production values coming up here. I'm fairly excited for making a better show for you guys, so definitely looking forward to that. We will be back here tomorrow with more contemporary. We'll be doing, we'll figure out what other kind of news is coming up. I'm sure there's going to be more on this grand jury thing, so look forward to that. And we will see you tomorrow, bright and early, for more contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.